All right, well, hi everyone. Okay, we're going to work on this practice test. It's all about imaginary numbers and complex numbers. So, first few, you'd be simplifying radicals. So, 75 is 25 times 3, and 25 is 5 times 5. So, square root of negative 75, that's negative 1 times 5 times 5 times 3. Now the square root of negative 1 times square root of 5 squared times the square root of 3. Square root of negative 1 is I. Square root of 5 squared is 5. And square root of 3. So I would take 5i radical 3 as an answer, or you can put the I at the end, 5 radical 3i. And the second answer, or second question here, negative 48. Let me break down 48 here a little bit. Let's go 8 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. 8 is 4 times 2. 4 is 2 times 2. So, square root of negative 1 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. X is x times x times x. And y is y times y. So I got the square root of negative 1 times square root of 2 squared. Again, square root of 2 squared times square root of 3 times the square root of x squared times square root of y, x, and then times the square root of y squared. That's I. That is 2. That is 2. That's square root of 3. That is x. That's square root of x. And that one is y. All right, final form of the answer. Let's go 2 times 2 is 4. And then the x, and then the y. Everything not attached to its radical still. And then square root of 3 and square root of x is square root of 3x. Okay, done everything except this I. Let's put I here at the end and have our answer. All right, number 3, square root of negative 20 times square root of negative 12. I'm going to go negative 1 times 2 times 2 times 5 for negative 20. I'm just not drawing the tree now. 12, negative 1 times 2 times 2 times 3. So what do we got here? We got square root of negative 1 times square root of 2 squared times square root of 5 times square root of negative 1 again times square root of 2 squared times square root of 3. This is I times 2 times square root of 5 times I times 2 times the square root of 3. All right, so I times I is I squared. 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 5 times square root of 5 is square root of 15. I times I, 2 times 2, square root of 5. Okay. Now, I squared is negative 1 times 4 times square root of 15. That is negative 4 radical 15. Circle that one. All right, number 4. That is negative 15I squared, which is negative 15 times negative 1, which is 15. Guys, I squared is negative 1, and I is equal to the square root of negative 1. Remember that for this test. You're going to be using it on almost every problem. Now, I to the 31st power, I don't know if you recall, but I to the first is I to the second is negative 1, I to the third is negative I to the fourth is 1. Remember that pattern? Well, I to the 31st power The biggest power, or biggest, not power, biggest multiple of 4 we can get, I think, is 28. And then we got I to the third times that to get I to the 31st. And I to the 28th is 1. I to the third is negative, times negative I, which is negative I. Now, next problem here, 3x squared plus 75 equals 0. I'm going to subtract 75 from both sides. I got 3x squared equals negative 75. I'll divide by 3. I got x squared equals negative 25. All right. I'm going to take the square root of both sides here, and I've got a positive and a negative square root. When you have these equations, you need the positive and you need the negative. So x equals no plus or minus here, but I got negative 1 times 5 times 5, which is square root of negative 1 times square root of 5 squared, which is I times 5, which I'll write as 5i here, plus or minus 5i there. All right, find the values of x and y that make this equation true. So you've got, this is an expression of a complex number. Here is a complex number. This part is the real part. That is the real part. This part is the imaginary part. And that part is the imaginary part. The real, didn't mean to cross my L there. The real equals the real. So 2x plus 7 equals negative 4. The imaginary parts are equal also. 3 minus y equals 6. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides here. And I've got 2x equals negative 11. I'll divide by 2, and I get x equals negative 5.5. Subtract 3 from both sides here. I got negative y equals 3. Divide by negative 1, I got y equals negative 3. All right. Here's the rest of the complex number side here. So you're adding, you're subtracting, you're multiplying, and you're dividing complex numbers on this side of the paper. I'm going to remove parentheses. I got 5 minus 7i plus 2 plus 4i. And that is 5. I'm going to rearrange these. 5 plus 2 minus 7i plus 4i. 5 plus 2 is 7. Negative 7i plus 4i is negative 3i. It's just adding like terms. That's all you're doing. And combining like terms. I'm going to remove parentheses here. I got 4 minus 8i here. Now I get the minus 3, and a minus minus is plus 6i. So that's 4 minus 3 minus 8i plus 6i. Just rearranging, getting our real parts together. That's 1. Negative 8i, positive 6i, that's negative 2i. 1 minus 2i. This one, when you got to multiply complex numbers, we're probably going to FOIL. So 3 times 4 is 12. That's first. Outside, 3 times 5i is 15i. Inside, negative 2i times 4 is negative 8i. And last, negative 2i times 5i is negative 10i squared. And 12 plus 7i minus 10, I'm replacing I squared with negative 1. That's 12 plus 7i, negative 10, negative 1, that's positive 10. And that is 22 plus 7i for that. And here I'm going to take 2 minus 3i. Okay, when we are dividing, remember we will use the conjugate. And I just kind of jumped right into it without really talking about it. When I multiply the bottom by, I can multiply the top by. 2 minus 3i up top. Now I'm going to FOIL. 7 times 2, I'll do it over here, is 14. Outside, that is negative 21i. Inside, that is negative 2i. And last, that is negative I times negative 3i is positive 3i squared. And then first on the bottom, that's 4. 2 times negative 3i is negative 6i. 3i times 2 is positive 6i. And 3i times negative 3i, that is negative 9i squared. Okay, these guys are canceling. So that is 14 minus 23i plus 3. I'm just looking at the top again. I'm replacing the I squared with negative 1. On the bottom, 4 minus 9 times negative 1, which is 14 minus 23i minus 3 over 4 plus 9. Negative 9 times negative 1 is positive 9. And 14 minus 3 is 11 minus 23i over 13. I'm going to write it one last time here in separate parts. The real part is 11/13 minus 23/13 I. The imaginary part's negative 23/13. All right, that is that, guys.